perfect ending for a game. What is it? I want you to ask this question for yourself. Because that's a very good question, honestly. And trying to find the answer for it is basically impossible. Until it isn't. In 2011, Toby Fox tweeted about a dream he had. In it, he saw an ending for a game. An ending so striking that he stuck with him. He described the dream as a spark. Something that got him genuinely excited. That dream, as he later explained, inspired the concept of Deltarune. And there's the thing, Toby says some of his best ideas came from dreams. And this one dream started it all. A story 10 years in the making. He's dedicated to think where it begins, how it goes forward, and most importantly, how it ends. Welcome to Deltarune, the game that makes you earn the right to exist. So let's start with something grounded. I believe in the chess theory, yeah, I believe in it, and I believe it's the route that Toby is going to take. I also believe that the white pieces are the lighteners and the black pieces are the darkeners. So we have, for example, the King Asgore, which is the white king, and Spade King, which is the black king. Spade King also has the traits of the king chess piece, but Asgore doesn't. If you want to know why, I suggest you look at the dark matter theory, which I think is really solid. We also have the white queen, which is Mayor Holiday, and the black queen, which is Q5, oh, I'm not going to read the whole name. For chapter 3, it's likely that Metaton or Alphys will be Tana, since they're both TV enthusiasts and like to control the board. Wait, doesn't chess have 2 rooks for each team? Okay, now this is where things get interesting. Because if the theory is right, then this could also mean that Father Alvin isn't going to be the only bishop. Now, I'm not here just to talk about the chess theory. No, my theory is way more advanced and one that could even predict the ending of Deltarune. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about it for a little so you guys can understand just how likely it is for it to be true, and because I'll need it to explain the last 3 chapters. For example, chapter 5 is a very interesting one. We know Chris is one of the White Knights, but what about the 3 other knights? This is where we have to think outside the box once again, because remember what Queen said? Only lighteners with enough determination can become knights. Because why would you promote yourself to a knight when you could become something way more powerful? So if the chess theory is right, this basically means that 4 characters are already the knight, and remaining characters, the pawns, can also promote to a knight if their determination to do so is strong enough. So which characters can be the knight? Ever since I was a kid, the piece I hated the most was the knight. Its rules seemed out of place. Unpredictable movement, jumping over pieces, disrupting the game. Just like Chris. His run breaks formation and opens the way to the Dark World. Or easy. Do you understand what I'm trying to say now? The knight not only represents freedom, but also the rebellion against the system and its rules. That's why I think Gaster might be the second knight. Papyrus, well, he does love the idea of being a knight, at least in Undertale, and Sans is Sans, he's definitely hiding something. So, does this mean any lightner can become a knight, as long as they are determined enough? Well, yes, but here's the catch. Most lighteners don't have that kind of determination. They have already put their own world inside their heads, and discovering something like this will shake the foundation of everything they believe in. It's too dangerous, too unstable. That's why they never want to create dark fountains in the first place. So, knowing all of this, the real question is, which lighteners are willing to become a knight? Pawns. Pawns are the most interesting piece on the board. They represent the people who have not reached their full potential yet. These guys are predictable, until they are not. But how can the light world pawns promote themselves to a new piece? And what about the darkners? They have never even visited the light world, so how is it possible for them to reach the end? This is where everything begins to fall apart. But what if I told you I might have the answer? What if I told you there are multiple parts in the game? Suddenly everything makes sense. there was still only one real board, the one where the true pieces exist and promote. Then we have the black pieces, the ones who mirror the Lightner's hopes and dreams, what they believe is real and what they want to be real. Those worlds can only be revealed by the piece that can jump over the board, the knight. Gaster was also a pawn like all the others, but like every scientist, he wasn't pursuing power. He was chasing something else, a what if. And then, it happened. But Gaster did not stop there. He may have figured out how to access these dark worlds, but what about something even deeper? What about a world lighter than light? So, he did what no other piece ever dared. He created a connection. So, we've seen pawns look for power, who look for freedom, or are just too ignorant to reach their full potential. So, what's left? Black pawns. Using the dark matter theory again, it's pretty easy to understand why there are powerful black pieces. Because Lightners give them enough attention, be it good or bad, for them to move forward and reach their full potential. Everyone else? Background noise, side characters, NPCs, permanent pawns. Gaster already knew this, of course he did, so he starts experimenting. Can the Dark World itself be rewritten? Molded? Can a pawn be forced into something new? Whether he calls it a success or not is irrelevant, because the truth is that it worked. Thanks to Gaster, Javel promoted himself to a king. He literally snapped the board rules in half just with belief alone, I can do anything. And for a moment he did. He broke the loop, rewrote the script. But the punchline is still a joke. A king, yes, but kings still play by the rules. That crown comes with a leash. Spamton? He tries to become the strongest piece. And yeah, he does, but power is not freedom. He chases Evan and gets baited with discount agile links. Still shined, still on the board, just in a shinier cell. So, if this logic holds, then the pawns in chapter 3 and 4, they're doomed to repeat the cycle. Promotion, delusion, and failure. So, how do we get true freedom? By defying God. So Gaster asked himself, what if I could create a Darkner with true freedom? A Darkner with the power of a knight. Lightners are more powerful than Darkners, and that's canon. But that does not mean that Darkners can't mimic a Lightner's behavior. Ross has been sketchy from day one. He is different, and can survive every dark world. He bends the rules by seemingly going from one dark world to another, so if there is any Darkner that can survive anywhere and be more than a pawn, it's him. As I said before, knights are very unpredictable, and the rules they follow are very different from all the other pieces I've talked about. But with enough information, they'll become predictable in the end. If I had to guess, Ralsei is part of Gaster's experiment and the one that succeeded. This means two things. There is a chance that Chapter 5 secret boss is going to be Ralsei, and it's very likely for the boss not to be insane because they got what they wanted. It's also important to note that even though Ralsei is a knight, he cannot go to the light world for the same reason Gaster cannot enter the player world. I will talk more about this soon, but for now, let's talk about the player. Because without the player, there is no game. Until now, the player has been a ghost in the code, the end on the mouse, not a piece on the board. And that's the game's problem. You don't follow its rules, you corrupt its logic, but you don't know that. Just like every single other character in the story. You keep immersing yourself deeper into the story while ignoring the obvious hints the game is offering you. And the worst part? You don't even realize just how many times you already reached the end of the story. Because, remember what Toby said? The game only has one ending, and that ending is darker than dark. It's nothing. And that's why your choices don't matter. Because in the end, it's always the same. And this is why the chess theory is so perfect. In chapter 1 you defeat the king, in chapter 2 you defeat the queen, in chapter 3 you defeat the rook, in chapter 4 you defeat the bishop, in chapter 5 you defeat the knight, in chapter 6 you defeat the pawn, and in chapter 7 you defeat the player. And how do you defeat yourself? By thinking it's over and leaving the board alone. Once you stop coming back, it's truly over, and the world is covered in darkness. That's the perfect ending, because in this story, you're not the hero, you're not the chosen one, and you're not even welcome. You're just a virus that had to be removed. And yet, you keep playing. And this is where my next theory comes in, because I believe this is Undertale, but reversed. In Undertale, you begin as a controller, and you can use that control to achieve a lot of endings, like the good ending, where it's not really an ending, but it has to be considered one because it ends up taking the control away from the player and disconnecting them from the story. You can also use that control to achieve the bad ending, the ending darker than dark. In this ending, you also go from controller to controlled by Kara. What about Deltarune? In Deltarune, you begin as the controlled. Your choices have very little impact on the story, and in the end, you'll go from controlled to controller, where your choices will finally matter. But, as soon as that happens, it will already be too late. The lowering will happen, and the world will be covered in darkness. So isn't the solution just to divert your path and get the good ending? See, but that's the problem. It's impossible to do something like that when you are the one being controlled. So, how are you supposed to change the story? By pulling the strings. If you are powerless in Grease Vessel, then what about controlling other characters to do illegal stuff? Let's look at Noelle for example. She's a pawn, and pawns are famous for following simple orders. Proceed. So let's teach her to proceed. Oh, there's an enemy in the way? Proceed. Why limit ourselves to only proceeding forward? Let's proceed backwards. Why is it nostalgic? Because she's moving backwards in life, remembering her past. You try promoting her this way, but that is just not how life works. If you want to promote yourself, you have to stop looking at your past and start looking at your future instead. Proceed. 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 Proceed, 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 proceed. Oh. Oh shit. This is the final challenge. White pieces cannot capture other white pieces. And that's a fact in chess. But you're the player. Are you really going to let the game dictate what you can and cannot do? No. Congratulations, the game fears you now. You corrupted a pawn and promoted it to a piece that doesn't even exist. You created your own piece, the angel. And if you keep persevering, if you keep forcing the game down the wrong path, then maybe, just maybe, the game will give up trying to end everything in chapter 7. That could open up our path to a world where our choices matter and where we can truly interact with the characters. Toby's not like other devs, and that's why it's called the annoying dog, because everything it does means something. Just like in Undertale, he knows most people will play the game once and feel satisfied, but he still went out of his way to create 2 all new routes that more than 90% of players will never even touch. So why not do something similar with Deltarune, and lock the player away from the final 3 chapters? Just think about how cool it will be if you could keep playing the game after you thought it was over. But even if that sounds amazing, we still have to face the truth. There will always be a last chapter, and that's inevitable. So does that mean the ending will be the same? No. Who said the last chapter even needs an end? And this is my final theory. Deltarune does not end. Once the game understands your true intentions, once it no longer sees us as a virus, it will stop fighting back, because the game is like a player too. It's who you are really up against. So why not stop fighting? Why not just try to coexist instead? And that's the true ending of the game. No, let's not call it an ending, because endings need 2 words. Journeys only need 1.